Howdy has been growing rapidly. What have been the biggest factors driving your expansion, and how has this growth impacted your business and your clients?
Hi, everyone. We're so happy to be here. Darby, thank you again for having us. And yeah, I'd love to tell you a little bit about it because I was reflecting on this journey recently. How do you actually just pass the 30 million ARR mark? And I remember this number is like very vivid in my memory because when we were just starting out and we had barely any customers and we were barely making any money, it was 2019. I happened to be in Colorado Springs and there was a US Treasury there and they had a wall of $30 million in cash on the wall. And I stood in front of it and I was like, take a picture. If our company hits 30 million, I'll post this picture. And so that had happened on Monday and I posted it on Monday. So this like reflection of this journey is very recent. And I will say that something that surprises me now that I wouldn't have thought of in 2019 is how much we're still doing today, what we did in the very early days. And I think what people who are building companies don't realize is that so much of the sales, like 50% of the sales are still coming because Frank and I are prospecting. So much of what we're doing is still the stuff we had to do in the early days. So all of the things that you do in the early days of your company to make yourself successful is going to continue to make you successful. So if it works early on, it's going to work later on as well. And so this question about what's the biggest factor for driving the expansion is one of the things we did really early on was to make sure that we were a really great product, or we're actually a service, but to make sure we were a really great service for one company, not to try and be like all things to all companies or to sell many things to many people or to sell like what we really wanted to do was just make sure that we nailed the one thing for one company. And it was such an amazing experience that if we were to give them an NPS, of course, they'd mark 10 because they were just like blown out of the water. And then we needed to make sure that like financially, that we could scale it and that like operationally, it could be linear. Because if it delights one person, and if it financially makes sense that we can scale it without losing money, in fact, we make money, and linearly, we can expand linearly to deliver the same amount, then as we're growing, we can create efficiencies. We can make things better. We can make more money. We can make more profit margin. We can squeeze things here and there. We can delight things in other ways. But what we really wanted to do was just like isolate it down to like literally n of one and just make sure that we were excellent for one. And then if you can do that, you can duplicate it. And so what is the biggest factor that's now driving our expansion is that we have been hyper focused on one thing and being great at one thing. And now we just have time on our side because we're getting referrals from our customers. We're getting our name out there. We're still prospecting. We're still doing, like Frank and I are still doing sales calls. We're still meeting with different folks all the time. But now we have an entire team that's helping and duplicating these efforts in a way that it's not just us doing it. We have a massive team helping us with it. But get it right for one, and I promise you it will keep compounding, especially if you just like have enough time behind you.